Welcome back to the Peach Teach English podcast. I'm Frankie Mesmer, your host, and today I have my guest Amanda from Australia.
Thank you so much for having me here, Frankie. I am Amanda. I am the owner of Aussie English with Amanda. You can't really see my logo because the light's on, but basically I am an English teacher and I'm focused on the Australian English dialect, and I help professional migrants and international students in Australia understand the accent, slang, and integrate into Australian culture.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I invited you because I want my audience to learn more about Australian English and culture, and I think you will be a great option for that. And so, my first question for you is if someone were to walk off an airplane today and enter Australia, what would be the top three tips that you would give them?
Wear sunscreen would probably be number one, stepping off a plane. Australia's UV rays, like the UV index is so high in Australia, it's one of the highest. So sunscreen is non-negotiable. Really, really important to be wearing sunscreen. So that's probably number one. Manners in Australia can be seen as a little bit different, I guess, or the expectation of politeness is different country to country. But in Australia, what is expected is that you say please, thank you, excuse me. I know it might be common sense to some people, but in some languages, those are built into the sentence structure in a different way. So when you translate from your language into English, it might not be a direct translation for you to be saying, please, thank you, excuse me. So that's really important. You might accidentally insult someone without meaning to if you forget those things. We use a lot of slang. Not everyone, but definitely a lot of informal language, a lot of shortening of words, and a lot of slang. So just being mindful of that, you do come across someone who says something that you don't really understand. It is okay, though, to ask someone, sorry, I don't understand what that means. Could you please explain? So don't be afraid to ask someone what they mean. People will be happy to explain.
And I think even as native speakers, you could use some Aussie slang that I have no idea what it means. And as a native speaker, I would never be ashamed or embarrassed to be like, I don't understand. Yeah. But I do think sometimes when it's
Yeah.
not your native language, you feel a little embarrassed when you don't understand. And just remember that's completely
Yeah.
normal. And the key is to understand. So ask that question and clarify. And I would say
Exactly.
maybe before you go, try to study some of that Aussie slang so that you aren't as
Yeah.
lost when you get there. Great
Yeah,
tips. So
absolutely.
wear that sunscreen, make sure you're being polite, have good manners, and study some Aussie slang before you get there.
Mm-hmm.
Great tips.
Yes, exactly.
So another question I have, Amanda, is I feel like I don't really know a lot of the regional geography of Australia. So how would you break down the different regions of Australia?
80% of Australia's population live along the coast. So Australia is an island continent. It's the only island continent. And if you think of the shape or the outline of Australia, it's a huge country. It has a lot of land mass, and 80% of the population live along some kind of coastline. So the different regions, according to the government, have been kind of separated by I can't remember the exact term, but it's like really regional, which would be like in the middle of the country. Like I used to live in the desert right in the heart of Australia. Um, and that would be extremely regional. You've also got some cities that, like the Gold Coast, that's a really popular city, but for visa purposes, that's known as a regional area. So there are different subcategories of regional Australia. I grew up in a very small town on the coast, 5,000 people, and that would be known as a regional area. And we grew up using slang and informal language that people in, let's say, Brisbane might not even understand. I've taught slang on my Instagram, and I've had Australians say, we don't say that. I'm like, yeah, but I did. I do.
And do you remember what the slang was, Amanda?
Yes, it's petty. It was just the other week, actually, petty. Or I use a T flap, so I say petty. Petty, which is short for petrol. So, like gas, what you put in the car. Yeah. And, we'd be, if I was carpooling with someone, I'd say, oh, I'll give you petty money. I'll give you petrol money. So that's one. And I've had this specific reel go viral on Facebook, and I've had so many people say, what the hell is petty? That I've started to put disclaimers when I know that there's a word that maybe is a bit more regional. I'll say, this is what I grew up saying. Just because you might not have heard it doesn't mean that it's wrong.
Exactly. Petty. Now, in Australia, do you also use petty as the adjective? Like, that's so petty.
Yeah, we do.
What would you say are the top travel destinations to visit in Australia?
So Great Barrier Reef, absolutely. So a lot of people don't realize the Great Barrier Reef doesn't start in far north Queensland. It starts near Bundaberg, which is about 3 hours north of Brisbane. So you don't have to go all the way to far north Queensland to get a look at the Great Barrier Reef. It is beautiful to go up there though. So Great Barrier Reef, Uluru, which is in the heart of Australia, which is where I used to live. So that is a big, big, big rock. It is a sacred structure that is sacred to the local Indigenous people, the local Ananu people. And you used to be able to climb it. But then in 2016, so it's been almost 10 years, they stopped allowing that because it is considered sacred in the local culture. Indigenous people, they believe in spirits rather than, say, a god. So they don't have like a temple or a church that they go to. They have places. So people climbing that was considered disrespectful. It'd be like us climbing a church or something. So it's still a beautiful place to go. And they've really done a lot of work over the years to teach people, teach tourists more about the local Indigenous culture, which is really, really great. Sydney, of course, Harbour Bridge, Sydney Opera House, definitely the main ones.
I'm a big fan of like nature tourism. Are there
Yeah.
any other like natural
Mm.
places you'd really recommend?
Oh, yes. Darwin, Northern Territories. I used to live in Darwin and they have beautiful national parks there with like massive waterfalls, swimming holes. You have to be careful because crocodiles can sometimes be there. But yeah, the Kakadu National Park or Litchfield National Park, just around Darwin, huge ones. Also, you'll find that if you go inland from most capital cities, you'll find a lot of areas to go hiking, mountains to climb, waterfalls that you can swim in. Like even I used to live in Brisbane and not even an hour towards like in between Brisbane and Gold Coast, you kind of go inland here and there'd be, waterfalls that you can go swimming in.
Wow. That sounds like where I'd want to go. What was the name again?
Twin Falls. I think it was called Twin Falls, that area. That's the name
Twi-
of that waterfall, but I can't remember the national park. Most of these places are in national parks, which are protected as well.
You mentioned crocodiles, yes? Um,
Mm.
so there are definitely some exotic animals to the rest of the world in Australia. What are some of those exotic animals and how common is it to actually see them?
Crocodiles you'll only find in the northern parts of Australia, and I've seen a few. It's just they're part of nature. They're part of the water. Yeah. Yeah, snakes, you've got spiders, you've got a lot of different marsupials, so koalas, possums. Yeah, so possums, they look like rats, but they're bigger and they make a horrible noise at night, but they're a marsupial. So to those who don't know, a marsupial is a type of animal that carry their baby in a little pouch at the front, like kangaroos do. So kangaroo is a marsupial, koala is a marsupial, so they have a little pouch, and so do possums. Oh gosh, there's so many. The echidna, it's kind of like your porcupine. It's got the spikes on the back. The platypus, which is a water animal. I've never seen a platypus before, but I've seen an echidna.
Cool, cool.
Oh, that's what I was going to say before. It depends on where you live. So where my hometown, 5,000 people, that town, that was in a kind of bush regional area. And like that's my dad still lives there. And I've seen just last year when I was back home, I saw a blue-tongued lizard. I saw kangaroos. He has this frill-necked lizard that visits his house and it sticks his like the little things on the side. My dad has found a snake before in his house. So, yeah, it depends on the
Yeah.
areas.
I used to work at a rooftop bar near the river, and one day, like, an alligator just came out of the river onto, River Street in downtown. And you could see, like, down the street, like, people going crazy, and it's like, "What's going on?" Yeah, and it was an alligator. In Australia, do you have sharks?
Actually, just a few, God, it must have been last year or the year before. There was a shark attack at one of my hometown beaches and someone died. There's a few shark attacks a year that you see in the news, like the news I follow anyway. And I'm sure that there's definitely more around the country that I don't hear about.
Yeah, and generally, shark attacks are pretty rare. And as I was mentioning alligators a little bit, we actually will fry them up kind of like chicken nuggets, the tail, and eat what we call gator tail. Do you eat crocodile in Australia?
I have, yeah, when I lived in Darwin, I did. I mean, I'm vegetarian now, but yes, I did eat crocodile in Darwin. There's a crocodile farm there. Unfortunately, that's what they use to get the crocodile skin for crocodile leather, and then the meat they sell there for people to buy. But I've tried kangaroo tail, so that's a thing. Not in big cities, but I mean, again, I lived in the Northern Territory. That's Darwin is known as the Florida of Australia, the kind of stuff people do in the Northern Territory. So, yes, I tried all of these things when I lived in the Northern Territory, and it was just very much a normal thing. But I've never tried crocodile tail, but I have tried kangaroo tail.
Kangaroo tail. I've actually had kangaroo. There was like this exotic meat butchery shop in Florida, and someone prepared kangaroo
See, Florida.
yes, kangaroo meatballs, and I got to
Yeah,
try that.
right.
So, what are some other common Aussie food and drinks?
Most of the food that's popular in Australia, I swear, comes from other countries. So, chicken parmigiana, we call the chicken palmy in New South Wales, or chicken parma in Victoria. Chicken parmigiana is Italian. Chicken schnitzel, which I think schnitzel is German, we call it the chicken schnitty. So they're really popular at the pub. Um, Meat pies. I think I've read a few articles where Americans are horrified because pies are usually sweet in America, but we have savory pies that you can go to the petrol station or the servo and just, buy a little pie in the little warmer there. So that's savory stuff. In terms of sweets, we have Anzac biscuits or Anzac bickies, which are which basically are rolled oats, coconut, and I think golden syrup. And they're called Anzac biscuits because Anzac stands for Australia New Zealand Army Corporation. And during World War One, when the women were at home and the men were off fighting in the war, they were baking all of these biscuits. And because of the ingredients being like so simple, they didn't expire. So they could go on these ships to the soldiers on the front lines. And yeah, they lasted. And so they called them Anzac bickies because the soldiers of World War One were known as Anzacs, the Australian and New Zealand Army Corporation. So they're still really popular. The pavlova dessert, but that is something that we say we've claimed in Australia as our own, but New Zealand also says it started there. Actually, you cannot find online where it started.
Maybe both.
So you got the pavlova. Lamington. So that is like a little sponge cake with chocolate on the outside and kind of coated in coconut. Oh, Vegemite, of course. I'm like, I'm missing something with
Yeah,
my shirt.
Vegemite. Yes.
Yeah, so this is a salty spread. A big mistake that people make is thinking that it tastes like chocolate and it's sweet. So they'll get and they'll put it on their bread and toast like this. But you have to start off really small. It's salty. It tastes like soy sauce, basically. So
I've actually had Vegemite. I need to try it again. I didn't love it the first time around.
it's an acquired taste.
But it's most commonly eaten with like a piece of bread or something.
Toast with butter first. So make sure you use butter and then a little bit of Vegemite so it melts into the butter. I personally like it with avocado and then cheese and then have it as like a toasted cheese sandwich or like a grilled cheese. Or you can have it open and then you put it under like the grill like this.
Okay. I need to try it with the butter and then see.
Yes. And put extra butter and just a little bit of Vegemite to start off with, because it's really hard to take it off if you add too much.
And what do you think would be the American equivalent to Vegemite?
I don't know what you would have as an equivalent.
I wouldn't say it's an equivalent at all, but something
Okay.
similar, probably because it's
Yeah.
like representative of American culture. I would say peanut butter just in the sense that we eat it a lot.
You have peanut butter and jelly a lot there, don't you? Like that's a thing, right?
Peanut butter and jelly is a classic. It's not my favorite. It doesn't
Yeah.
match for my taste. I prefer butter and jelly, and I like
Okay.
peanut butter and honey.
Okay.
You can get crazy and make a peanut butter honey banana sandwich.
Oh, yeah, that would be nice because I love peanut butter and banana on toast or on a sandwich. Yeah, I could add a bit of honey to that.
And I think Elvis Presley loved that snack.
Really?
And if I'm not mistaken, he might
Yeah.
have even thrown some bacon on there, and I think that's just crazy.
Ooh, okay. Yeah.
And do you have any other tips or challenges that you think people, let's say immigrants moving to Australia, might face, or students?
A mistake that I see people make is not really engaging with that small talk. People ask you how you're going, but they don't always really care. It's just, a formality or politeness. So make sure you ask the question back. So let's say you're being served at the cafe and the cafe attendant says to you, "Hey, how you going?" And you just say, "Good, thanks." But you don't ask that question back. You're going to look rude, but you're not meaning to because you've answered them. So making sure you ask those questions back, because that's part of the politeness that we talked about before and showing good manners. I just did a post this week on how to end a conversation politely when you're ready to finish the conversation, and saying things like, "All right, well, I better let you get back to it." So that's kind of saying, "Sorry for interrupting what you were doing. I will let you continue. I'll catch you later," or "Have a good one." So you could say that, or "All right, well, I better be off, or I have to head off now," which means I have to go, and then "Have a good day."
Those are all really good, yeah, because you want to politely be able to walk away. Sometimes even with Spanish here, like I'm at the gym, someone's talking to me, and I do kind of want to continue my workout. I don't want to keep chatting. Yeah. And sometimes I feel like I do leave a little abruptly. I need to be able
Mhm.
to kindly walk away. So giving those
Yeah.
expression definitely will help people.
Mhm.
So you said one of your tips was to make sure you expose yourself to Aussie English pronunciation before you
Mm.
go. What media would you recommend
Mm.
that they consume so that they get that
Yeah.
exposure?
It's hard because a lot of the shows I normally recommend, I don't know how readily available they are outside of Australia. So one show that I recommend to literally everyone is called Utopia. In America, the name got changed to, I think, Dreamland, because there were too many things called Utopia. So they called it to Dreamland, I think it was. But basically, it's kind of called Australia's version of The Office. So it has a perfect insight into Australian workplace culture, accent, informal language, slang, small talking, sarcasm, and humor. So it's really great for all of those things. Also, if you are just beginning to get into the language and you don't mind watching cartoons, watch Bluey. You'll find Bluey everywhere. It's all over YouTube, and you'll find it, I think, in most countries. Little cartoon that uses Australian English vocabulary. Frankie, they use the word thongs in Bluey. So they use those kind of words. Phrasal verbs. So they'll say things like get up, which means to stand up. Simple phrasal verbs that might not be easily translatable if you try to translate that verb part and the other part in your own language. So Bluey, definitely. Utopia, if you can.
I watched, what was it? Heartbreak High?
Heartbreak High. Yeah.
That one
Yeah.
was fun.
Yeah. There's actually there's a YouTube channel of the production company that makes Utopia. It's called Working Dog Productions, I think. And they share snippets of Utopia a lot, like little 3 or 4 minute clips. So if you can't watch the whole show, you can search working dog promotions or productions, I think. But just use keywords, use keyword search. Let's say you love watching travel vlogs. So search travel vlogger Australia or Australian travel vlogger. I have a student, she was really into crocheting. So she Googled like crocheting Australia and she was watching videos on YouTube. So play around with some of those keywords, especially on YouTube, because you'll be able to find something that one picks up your interest. So you're likely to stay connected while watching it. And yeah, that way you kind of are getting a little bit of that exposure if you can't find the other shows that I recommended.
Is there any advice you'd like to give about Australian pronunciation?
The main rule, this is honestly the main rule you need to remember. So the only time we say R in Australian English is if the next sound is a vowel sound. We don't go by writing, okay? So if the next sound is a vowel sound, we have to say the R. If it's a consonant sound, we don't say it. So this also works with linking as well. So let's think about the word water or water. It ends in R, so we don't say it, water. But if the next word starts with a vowel sound, we're going to link. For example, water or Coke, water raw, raw. See how I'm making the R sound? Water or Coke. So in Australian English, it's the same in British, New Zealand, South African English too. We don't say R unless the next sound is a vowel sound. So yes, that's the main thing to keep in mind when it comes to pronunciation.
And guys, Amanda really gives a lot of tips about Australian pronunciation. So I'd really recommend following her YouTube channel or Instagram, and you can get a lot of tips there.
The Aussie English with Amanda.
And highly recommend it. Her content is really, really good. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us today and see you next time. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.